Welcome to our first episode of Unhooked.
This is a brand new show we've been working on, and we are extremely excited to share it with you.
We promise to bring you premier coverage of the 40 acres and the wide world of sports. Now, let's get right into it.
Welcome into TSTV Sports Unhooked. I'm John Kelley alongside Kevin Baskar, and we're going to give you some real motorsports action. First up, NASCAR. They've been really trying to get into the American market, sell more tickets, sell more views. They had a big event at the LA Coliseum a couple weeks ago, but we're going to be focusing on a big upcoming event, the Daytona 500. Take a look. Start your engines. Tomorrow, February 20th, the Daytona 500 will kick off the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series in exciting fashion. Taking place at the Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida, the race sees drivers race 500 miles or 200 laps around the oblong circuit. It began in 1959 as a successor to shorter races on the Daytona Beach road course. Despite being the first race in the NASCAR series, it is widely regarded as the most prestigious of the series, which makes it unique in sport. Here is 2021 NASCAR Cup Series winner Kyle Larson with more on the race.
Yeah, I'm excited to get the season started, officially started, I guess. Last week was fun at the Clash. I had a really good time, but yeah, now we get points racing and got to get focused on trying to win another title. So I'm looking forward to the challenge, and yeah, I got a great team, so we should hopefully have a good shot.
Recently, NASCAR has been trying to expand to a wider audience. Part of this included last week's Clash at the Coliseum, which saw racers drive 150 laps around the LA Coliseum. This marked the first time a NASCAR event was held in a stadium since 1956. The event also served as a debut for the next-gen NASCAR race vehicles, which sees the cars becoming more durable and updated overall, with new wheel designs, refueling systems, brake systems, and more. The Daytona 500 will certainly be a big test for these new cars. Back to the Daytona 500. The starting four for this race from qualifying are Kyle Larson, whom you just heard from, Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski, and Chris Buescher. You can catch all the Daytona 500 action tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. on Fox. And that was a good look at some NASCAR action coming up in a few weeks. Kevin, why don't you tell us about a different type of motorsport?
Yeah, they either say you like NASCAR or you like F1. There's no one in the middle, right? So F1 is actually starting their season in about a month. They're having some racing, a little testing going on in the future weeks coming up and all. But there's a lot of different changes that are happening this year, this upcoming season. Let's go take a look and see what those changes are. A new generation of racing is coming to F1 this upcoming 2022 season. Initially delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic, F1's new car is boosting a lot of hype regarding its new capabilities.
It's all about improving the racing, making it easier for drivers to battle each other, for cars to follow one another, aerodynamically speaking at least. The key is inside it actually. It's the entry to the tunnels. It reminds me a lot of an old Indy car or an old Champ car, and that's because this car makes its downforce completely differently to the current generation of Formula One car. And the idea is that a ground effect car should allow it to race better and follow each other closer in traffic.
More specifically, the engineers behind the making of this car state how older F1 machines lose about 35% of downforce when driving 20 meters behind another F1 car, and about 47% when driving 10 meters behind another F1 car. In comparison, the new car dramatically reduces those figures, 4% at 20 meters and 18% at 10 meters. This promotes cleaner air between all cars during the race, and as mentioned before, would lead to much more closer racing. Part of the design that helps promote closer racing is within the wheels section of the car. Most noticeably, there is a vast size increase on the tires of the new F1 car. In previous generations, they were using a 13-inch tire, but now they've increased by a whole 5 inches, 18-inch tires to be exact. These new 18-inch tires have been designed with the goal to prevent tires from overheating, a primary aspect of keeping cars racing closer together. On top of that, this year's car will also feature over-wheel winglets and wheel covers. The reasoning behind this feature is quite simple. Better airflow distributor throughout the car, which, as you might have guessed by now, promotes cleaner air. Now, plenty of fans are, of course, very much excited about these features and cannot wait to see the new generation of cars being on the track. But how are the current F1 drivers reacting to these changes as their new cars are just being released?
For me, actually, the biggest thing is just the view in the cockpit with these big tires. Like, to hit an apex in some tight corners is a bit more difficult. The driving, I mean, it just feels like the car has a bit less grip, but you will get used to that. That's why we have the practice days. You can get used to the sliding and locking and stuff like that.
That's something that everyone and all us drivers have always wanted, is closer wheel-to-wheel racing. That's you see more of that, obviously, in the lower ranks when you get down to go-karts, but as you get up and further into, obviously, the pinnacle of the sport, it's harder and harder to follow. So I really, really do hope that this delivers what they say it's going to deliver. It's just been really interesting seeing the designers and everyone coming together to find the best ways of creating a masterpiece.
I love it. I really, really like it. I think I will love it even more if it's fast on track, but I absolutely love the look.
I think it looks aggressive, it looks radical, I think it looks beautiful also, and yeah, as Charles, I just hope it's fast. The only question mark obviously remains the visibility. It looks big, it looks like this might cover a bit, and in street circuits it might be a bit difficult.
Yeah, it's vibrant. It's awesome, you know. I think, you know, when Formula One is a lot about performance, and that is like primary purpose, but what comes a close second is looking good. And I'm very pleased that before we've even hit the track, we look good. So we've ticked a big box.
But there's so many, at the same time, so many new things with new tires, completely new cars, lots of new challenges. I hope the field will be closer together, and that will give us, you know, more chance to race and race more in the front than we did last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a very exciting time of the year when you see the car for the first time, and you know, especially this year with these new regulations, the cars look so different. It's very exciting.
So it's pretty evident that every driver is eager for this upcoming season to get started. Will we actually see close and competitive racing this year? We will find out very soon, as the F1 season officially has its first race on March 20th at the Bahrain International Circuit. I'm Kevin Baskar, reporting for Unhooked.
That's a lot of different changes, don't you think, John?
Absolutely.
It's going to be very interesting to see who wins this upcoming F1 season. It's going to be like insane.
No doubt, I'm definitely looking forward to it. But y'all have something to look forward to. When we come back, Tommy Yarrish will be giving us a look at a certain part of the NBA.
Welcome back into TSTV's Unhooked. When the Philadelphia 76ers drafted LSU forward Ben Simmons back in 2016, they were pretty confident in what they were getting in the young superstar. And he showed out pretty well in the NBA after sitting out his first year, coming back, winning Rookie of the Year in the next. But there was always one lingering problem: his ability to shoot. And as time led on, it became more of an issue, especially when the 76ers were trying to make deep playoff runs. So it's about time that they did something about it, and Simmons had a say in it as well. Take a look. Everything starts on June 20th, 2021. Sixers, Hawks, Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Semis. In this series, Ben Simmons made 25 of his 73 free throw attempts, just 34%, the worst in a postseason series in NBA history. Alongside his poor shooting from the charity stripe, Simmons didn't take a single shot in the fourth quarter in 5 of the 7 games against Atlanta. That's not the type of confidence that you want from your star player, and it was clear that it took a toll on Simmons. Take a look at the play that sent social media into a frenzy.
Simmons, they cleared out for him. Tapping his way in. Spins on Gallinari, gives it up. Oh, he was right there. And a foul as Thibault goes to the basket. Boy, Simmons, uncontested, had a layup, but he leaves it for Thibault, who makes something out of it and is headed to the line.
Well, but that's when you know that the game is in your head. That's a dunk for Ben Simmons right there. You got it, and I know you got it to Thibault, you got the free throws, but Ben Simmons, you got to shoot that shot. Be confident that if you do get fouled that you can make the free throw with an and one.
In a 2-point game, much less a 2-point Game 7, you'd expect your $35 million a year player makes a play to tie the game up and put your team into a better position to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. But instead, Simmons dumps it off seemingly to avoid getting fouled and lets Matisse Thybulle go to the line instead. It's a play that Sixers star Joel Embiid remembered clearly. Here's what he had to say about it afterwards.
But I thought the turning point was just, we had an open shot, and we made one free throw, and we missed the other, and then they came down and scored, and we didn't get a good possession on the other end, and Trey came back and he made a three, and then from there down 4, and then it's on me. I turn the ball over and try to make something happen from the perimeter, but I thought that was a turning point.
So the Sixers season reaches a disappointing end once again. The year before, they were swept by the Celtics in the NBA bubble, and then in 2019, they lost on Kawhi Leonard's unreal buzzer beater in Game 7 in Toronto. So frustrations were only continuing to rise, and so begin trade talks for Ben Simmons. It wasn't until September 1st that Simmons would formally request a trade and announced he wouldn't show up to training camp. His holdout continued through the rest of the month and into October, as he would miss media day, training camp, and the first 2 preseason games. Finally, on October 11th, he returned to Philadelphia, but it was far from triumphant. Instead, just over a week later, Simmons was kicked out of practice by head coach Doc Rivers for, quote, not being engaged with his teammates. At this point in the process, it seems like Simmons' teammates were already moving on.
At this point, I don't care about that man, honestly. He does whatever he wants. That's not my job. That's those guys' jobs. I'm only focused on trying to make the team better, win some games, play hard every night, try to lead, the guys that we have here. And I'm sure they feel the same way because, our chemistry has been excellent. Despite everything that's been happening in the last few months, like I said, I don't really care.
Then the situation entered a sort of dead period. No real progress was made on a trade, as the Sixers had simply too high of an asking price, and Simmons was continually fined for missing games and other required team gatherings. Fast forward to January 12th, the last meeting Simmons' agent Rich Paul would have with the 76ers. And there was still no budging from either side. But finally, the perfect situation fell right into their hands at the trade deadline.
Sage, James Harden wants a trade to the 76ers today, I'm told. He has not told the Nets specifically that. I'm told he is has a lot of trepidation about the idea of publicly of asking out of two different teams in 2 successive seasons, but the Nets know where he stands. The 76ers know where he stands, and I'm told those 2 teams are communicating today. They've got until 3 o'clock to see if there's a deal to be made. That would certainly be centered around James Harden and Ben Simmons. I think Brooklyn would need more, maybe significantly more than Ben Simmons to do a deal.
Shortly after, the deal was done. Philadelphia agreed to trade Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, Seth Curry, and 2 first-round draft picks to Brooklyn in exchange for James Harden and Paul Millsap. At long last, the saga was over, and Philadelphia could move on. At the end of the day, both teams benefited from the trade. James Harden left his frustrating situation to join forces with MVP candidate Joel Embiid and a Sixers team that sits at 5th in the East. The Harden-Embiid combo is one that has the potential to be reminiscent and maybe better than the Harden-Clint Capella duo in Houston, a team that led the Rockets to the Western Conference Finals alongside Chris Paul. On the flip side, Ben Simmons now gets to play alongside Kevin Durant when he returns from injury and Kyrie Irving when the Nets play on the road. Simmons brings in a much-needed defensive specialty to Brooklyn and can be a viable scoring option inside the perimeter. It's safe to say that Simmons felt a huge weight lifted off his back and was finally at peace.
I was sitting there on my laptop with the TV in front, so my phone just started blowing up. And it didn't feel real for a few days, honestly. So once I actually drove into the city, I was like, wow, I'm really here, which was very surreal because I got my family 30 minutes away. You know, I got my grandparents 30 minutes away. So it's nice to have them, you know, close by also. And, you know, I think just this whole experience has been kind of surreal.
So the page turns in the Ben Simmons story as he heads to Brooklyn, teaming up with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. James Harden heads to Philadelphia to try and do what Simmons couldn't, win a championship. Coming up next, Clark Dalton tells us about Joe Burrow and how a win over Texas leads him to a Heisman the season after. Take a look.
Thanks, Tommy. Joe Burrow has had a meteoric rise to the top of the NFL. His elevation to superstardom began right here in Austin, Texas on September 7th, 2019, when he walked into DKR as an unheralded underdog. Let's take a look back at that. This may be hard to believe now, but Joe Burrow was an unknown heading into the 2019 college football season. At Ohio State, only one coach recruited him seriously, Tom Herman, ironically. And even then, he lost the starting job to Dwayne Haskins. When he jumped ship to Baton Rouge, he was a decent quarterback, completing 57% of his passes, leading the Tigers to 10 wins and a bowl victory over UCF. However, Reese, Kirk, and Corso didn't mention him at all as a main factor on College Game Day. That narrative would quickly change when LSU brought in Joe Brady, a passing coordinator from the New Orleans Saints. Brady would tap into Burrow's full potential, along with receivers Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. On the other hand, Texas was supposed to be back. In 2018, it looked like Tom Herman's brilliance from Ohio State was starting to translate in Austin. The Longhorns had won 10 games for the first time in 10 years, including victories over Oklahoma and Georgia. Sam Ehlinger was starting to develop into one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 and a potential Heisman sleeper as he scored 41 touchdowns the previous season. This was supposed to be the moment, their time. They were on College Game Day for the first time in 10 years. Except it wasn't. This was the night that belonged to Burrow. Now, both teams got off to a slow start in the first quarter. Burrow threw a pick to Joseph Osai, and Keontae Ingram dropped a touchdown pass on 4th and goal. At the beginning of the second quarter, it all changed. Burrow finally caught fire. The Tigers scored 3 times, including a 58-yard 3-play drive at the end of the first half. The Longhorns didn't know what hit them. It was now 20-7. How was the former backup eating them alive, considering he was not a pinpoint in their game plan all week? Things were beginning to look bad, but to their credit, Texas fought back. Sam Ehlinger sparked a rally with 460 yards of total offense and 5 touchdowns, cutting the lead down to 23-21 by the end of the third quarter. Yet, Burrow kept clicking, leading LSU to 2 more drives that ended in touchdowns. Texas still had a chance though. With a little over 2 minutes left to go, the Horns had pinned the purple and gold at their own 39, facing a 3rd and 17. The Tigers were only up 37-31. If they didn't score here, Texas might have received one more opportunity to pull off the upset. The Tigers gambled, drawing up a deep ball where Burrow would rip it downfield. It was their last resort. Unfortunately, Texas gambled with a blitz, and we know what happens next. The 61-yard Justin Jefferson touchdown became a legend in the Bayou, and the signature image of that game, a 45-38 LSU victory. Burrow waved goodbye to the Austin crowd after his 471-yard, 4-touchdown performance. He never looked back, going on to win the Heisman in a season where he threw 65 touchdown passes. That moment provided the juice for an electric rise to the top. And you know the rest. He went on to win the national championship that year against Trevor Lawrence's Clemson Tigers, continuing to grow the legend. On the flip side, Texas is still trying to recapture that mystique from 2018, but that's a tough task when a player like Burrow burst onto the scene. Tommy, back to you.
The next season, Joe Burrow goes on to lead LSU to one of the greatest college football seasons in history, and arguably has one of the best teams in college football history and one of the best seasons a single player has had in college football history with 60 touchdowns. And even just this past year, leading the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl against every odd possible, even with an offensive line that led up the most sacks in the postseason in NFL history, and he's only in year 2. The story is just getting started for Burrow. Coming up after this, we get some trivia. Me and Kevin going at it. You won't want to miss it. We'll be back after this.
Welcome back into TSTV Sports Unhooked. Now, we're going to go into some trivia in a heated battle between Tommy and Kevin.
Boy, here we go.
Yeah. Let's get right into the first question. First off, obviously Super Bowl was just this weekend. A little bit of a Super Bowl question. And the question is, who was the first artist to perform a live Super Bowl halftime show?
Oh, boy. I mean, when did they start filming these shows? Live halftime show? I mean, it's got to be the 80s, the 90s, maybe? I mean, did you say live or not?
It was live. Both figuratively and
I think they mentioned this in the Super Bowl we just had. Because I think the halftime shows date back to like 1960. And I think they had some colleges playing at the Super Bowl halftime show in 1960. So I'm going to go with university bands.
University bands? Tommy, final
locked
answer?
in.
Kevin?
You know, I was thinking about it. I don't think there was like TV productions that were that great in the 1960s. It's got to be something like the 1990s. I'm going MJ.
Well, I can confirm that it was MJ.
Let's go.
Not the television sucked in the 90s. Can't diss former television. Yeah. But, so now, score Kevin 1, Tommy 0.
Really just missed it there.
Yeah,
just a scant few.
Just a little.
Moving on, another Super Bowl question, related question, pertaining to one Mr. Joey B. Joey Business.
Joe Shiesty.
Joe Shiesty. The Joe himself. The Big Joe.
Any more nicknames?
He's got a lot. Does Joe Burrow still hold the single-season passing record, TD record, in college football?
Yes.
He used to play in college.
Yes, 60 with LSU.
60 with LSU. Tommy, locked in his answer.
I know that's right.
Kevin?
I'm thinking about it because, I mean, Burrow, like, he's a sophomore in the NFL. No, I don't think it's Burrow. I mean, there's this one other kid. What was his name? Bailey Zappi.
Well.
Wait
yeah.
a minute.
Yeah, because
Tommy's question is answered here. Because
but I still think Burrow has him. Because he was the Western Kentucky kid. I think Burrow still has him. Because he had 60 with LSU. I remember that. There's no way this kid from Western Kentucky had 60. Unless Western Kentucky plays a bunch of
unfortunately,
nobodies.
Tommy, there is a way.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it is Bailey Zappi.
Wow.
So, Kevin, you're on fire tonight.
I mean, I think Burrow
Tommy,
deserves
you gotta
more.
pick it up.
I'm trying, man. I thought I had that one in the bag.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next question. Shifting over to my favorite sport, baseball. We're going to be heading up to New York. What was the longest winning streak for the 1962 New York Mets?
1962?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Had bad television, though, according to Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, radio was the thing, maybe?
1962.
It's...
So, I'm thinking this through. The Mets didn't really become relevant, per se, until, like, the 2000s, 1990s, 2000s, right? So that probably means they weren't good, right?
Maybe, maybe not. I'm an impartial judge, audience.
I mean, I would think that it would be difficult to have a very low losing streak and a very high winning streak
Well,
in
baseball
baseball.
can be a rough sport.
Just because, yeah, it can be a rough sport. I'm going to go with 3. 3-game
Final
winning
answer?
streak. Final answer. The
$1 million
Mets were not
question,
good in
3, final
1962.
answer.
I like your logic, but I gotta go higher.
I don't know any.
I'm going like 5. Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
All right. Both contestants not stoked on the 1962 Mets.
No, I'm not.
Well, your suspicions were correct.
Oh.
But this time, Tommy finally getting a point. It was a win streak of 3.
Thank you,
1962
Mets.
Not a team to bet on.
No.
Unless you wanted to lose.
Unless it was the one 3-game stretch.
Alrighty, moving on to Olympics, Winter Olympics going on right now. I've been watching a lot of bobsled. But when was the last time the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics were in the same year?
I feel like this is a trick question because didn't we just have the Summer Olympics and now we have the Winter Olympics? So I'm going to say 2021.
All right.
If we're looking in a year time span, we just had the summer ones last summer. Now we have the winter ones. So it's been a year, or under a year.
That is,
so I'm going to
that
go
is true.
2021/2022.
All right, Tommy, with this year, and a question where I was asking for the last year, bold, but I like it. Kevin?
No, I don't think it can be this year. There's no way. Because, like, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I feel like it would be sometime in the past. Because there was this one thing I remember seeing, like a while back, like in something in the 1990s, 1992 maybe, in which the Summer and Winter Olympics were in the same year. Was it 96 though?
I'm pretty certain the Olympics used to be played, they used to have the summer and winter in the same year every 4 years.
Right.
And then recently they broke it up so where it was every 2 years you get one. But since COVID happened, that kind of shrunk it into 1 year. So that's why I'm confident in my answer.
I'm just between 96 and 92.
You got to push you for an answer. Clock's ticking.
Clock is ticking. Gotta go 92.
92. This past year. Well, Kevin, you are correct.
Let's go.
It was in fact 92.
Okay.
Are you cheating?
I mean, no.
He's just a fan of the Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
Speaking of Winter Olympics, our second Winter Olympics question, or Olympics question in general, and our final question of this show. How many gold medals has the University of Texas at Austin produced?
Gold medals? Solely gold medals?
Yes, just,
Not
sorry,
medals
just
in
gold
total?
medals.
Okay.
No, I think I know this because Clark said it to me. It was 68.
Oh.
Like a while back,
Our
Clark said
producer rigging the
Michelle,
vote.
come on,
He
Clark.
said 68
Maybe.
a while back, so I'm pretty sure it's 68.
68, all right. You know, for a school that doesn't have winter sports, that's a lot of medals, you know.
Yeah.
Must be a pretty prestigious university. Tommy?
You know what? University of Texas has been around for a long time.
That it has.
We've always been somewhat good athletically. We've always had good athletes.
Not our football team, recently.
They have good athletes. They're just not collectively
Keyword
there
athletes.
yet.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Not collectively there yet. We'll get there, though, I hope. I think you're cutting them short a little bit here.
Really?
I'm going to bump it up by 20. Let's go 88.
88.
We are a great school here
School
in Austin.
Doesn't have winter sports. 88.
When we've been around this long, I would think we've been able to get a couple. I know in the last Olympics, we had a couple swimmers win gold.
Very true, very true. Well, final question. How many gold medals has UT won? You said 68. You said 88. Gentlemen, I can confirm that that number is 88. But unfortunately, Tommy,
I still lost, yeah.
you still lost. So our champion for this inaugural episode of Unhooked Kevin, congratulations. And with that, when we come back, we'll be talking to you about a very important issue in sports. Welcome back for the final time tonight into TSTV Sports Unhooked. For this block, fellas, I'm going to give y'all a burning question from around the world of sports, and y'all are going to have an opportunity to speak your mind. And so, the burning question on everyone's mind tonight, how does the NFL get higher ratings, and what do other sports need to do to achieve this? Tommy, take it away.
That's a really good question, first of all. I know that the NFL, specifically this Super Bowl, I believe was up by double-digit percentages when it comes to rating people watching it. And, you know, I think what the NFL does a really good job of is staying relevant in the season and in the off-season. So if you look at the timeline of how things work in the NFL, you'll typically start the calendar year off with the playoffs, move into the Super Bowl, and then you hit the off season. But even once you hit the off season, there's talks of free agency and the NFL draft. Who's good, who's not, what's going to happen next year, are there any trades going around, are players frustrated because, you know, players will always voice their minds on social media, and that'll lead to different things. So there's still storylines around, and then you move into the draft. And that's, you know, there's draft boards, mock drafts, things like that. The draft happens. Okay, who won the draft? Where do these teams need to improve and why? And then free agency. So, like, for example, this year, Davante Adams is definitely the biggest name on the market. And there's plenty of other storylines around there, too. Who needs to pick up who? How are they going to get better? That ties in with the draft. So it kind of flows into one another, and then comes the preseason. You're getting a first look at the new rookies, at the guys who have just come from trades or signings, things like that. And then you're right back into the regular season again. So the NFL does a really good job of keeping you looped in year-round, even when there is no football being played. That being said, I think that what other sports need to do, if they want to kind of be the same way, is maybe expand a little bit. The NFL expanded their playoffs, added one more, so that is more viewership, which means more money, and higher ratings, because more people are going to watch that. And especially this year, watching it unfold in one of, if not the most bizarre playoffs. Every single game, seemingly, was one that ended close, and it was worth the watch. Other sports, I would think, either need to expand in some sort of playoff format like that, not necessarily expand the season, because I think that's a little bit much. But I know the NBA's been doing it with the play-in tournament, and even if they expanded into other cities like Seattle, bringing the Supersonics back, it would be a great move.
I definitely agree. Having this, you know, 24/7, 365 sports, like, news assault from the NFL, especially in this modern day and age, really helps keep them relevant and build their brand, and other sports could definitely learn from that. Personally, I think when it comes to the NFL, they could take a note from other sports. I like to use this term, soccer Illuminati, not one specific group of people, especially in the U.S. You know, obviously there's Major League Soccer, not as popular, but what is really popular is the Premier League and all these European cups and conferences. And so people in America watch that. There's a huge section of the market that watches European soccer. So I think what the NFL needs to really do to build their brand, because I really think, aside from probably maybe some more people in the U.S., I don't think personally there's much room to grow for them. I think trying to build up a base around the world that may not be as good, but people will always want to watch the best of the best. I think that'll always be the NFL, for football at least, but getting people interested the grassroots way, and I think that would really help them grow. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
You know, I gotta take a little bit from both of your guys' answers and feed it into mine. I mean, I like what you said about expansion, and I like what you said about the world having more viewership across the world, and I think we should take more inspiration from leagues like the Premier League, Bundesliga because they have various different divisions where they can get promoted and where they cannot get promoted, and they have lots of fans that support those teams, right? So having the NFL have these lower minor league teams expanding into markets that are maybe not as developed, maybe not as popular as others, would promote more viewership and hence bring the NFL to higher ratings because more people will be interested in football than ever before. I mean, honestly, you can look at Texas. I mean, Texas has so many people who love football. If you were to have like some minor league teams in Texas, I mean, Texas high school football is just insane itself. Think about, I mean, Allen High School, man, like a whole stadium. That doesn't happen in my place. But anyways, like if it's just like you can bring so many of these minor league teams to different cities that are not necessarily as popular, and that overall can promote the NFL's brand in bringing higher ratings. So.
Yeah, definitely. A minor league system would be very interesting to see in football. Both very good answers. If you at home want to contribute to this conversation, tweet at us at TSTV Sports on Twitter. And who knows, we might get a personal response from one of the three of us. But that's it for this first episode of TSTV Sports Unhooked. Be sure to check out our sister shows, College Press Box, Mondays at 9:30. College Crossfire Wednesdays at 9 p.m. The One of Those Sports Show Friday mornings at 10 a.m. And a soon-to-be TSTV Game Day covering live Texas club baseball on March 6th. You won't want to miss it. But for Tommy, for Kevin, for everyone in studio and Master Control, I'm John Kelley. Have a good evening.